What did saboteurs blow up in Russia? Why won't Trump meet with Putin in South Africa? And who is Madonna marrying? And today on TSN, we have a lot of different topics. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and leave your comments. And here's what else we'll talk about in the Right Now segment. The blue and yellow flag over the Pokrovsk City Council.
Plus, you're the best. You're the best. Take shelter and stay in touch.
How did Ukrainian assault troops manage to deal a painful blow to Kremlin propaganda? And what's happening in the city now? 1 person was killed, 8 were injured, and 5 had to be rescued from under the rubble. The city of Kamyanske in the Dnipropetrovsk region was massively attacked by drones. There were about 24 explosions. One of the shaheds hit the roof of a 4-story building. A fire broke out and the building began to collapse. At least 12 apartments were completely destroyed and the others were damaged. Anastasia Neverna will tell us more about the aftermath.
The roof is on fire, debris is falling on people's heads, and residents are rushing around the entrance looking for neighbors trapped under the rubble. Just a few minutes earlier, a shahed had crashed into the roof of the 4-story apartment building. Rescuers who arrived at the scene managed to pull 5 people out from under the debris. All of them were handed over to the doctors. Anna is waiting outside the building at midnight. The drone hit her parents' entrance. Rescuers got her mother out right away. Just now they brought the cat out to the girl. But there is still no news about her father. Anna says her mother is feeling okay.
More or less, everything is fine. There are no fractures or anything like that. I'm holding on with all my strength and I believe that everything will be all right. I believe that God will help us. Daddy, I also believe that he is mine too. They will find him.
But a miracle did not happen. In the afternoon, rescuers recovered Anna's father's body. Mrs. Olga and her husband live on the 4th floor. He has trouble walking, the woman says, so they didn't even have the chance to go downstairs. So they just sat in their apartment, which was cracking at the seams.
They opened the kitchen window, stepped out into their hallway, heard the hum of a drone, a crackling sound, crack, 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 and then an explosion. The chandeliers fell, cracks appeared on the ceilings, and the small window panes shattered.
Only in the afternoon did they slowly start letting residents back into their apartments. Rescuers agreed to escort Alexandra to her home. I'm afraid
To see it for yourself. After.
sometime we meet Alexandra again. We ask her how her home is. She tells us. Clearing the rubble took more than half a day. The process was constantly interrupted by air raid alerts. Since last night, utility workers, police and volunteers have also been working at the site of the attack. Some residents of the destroyed apartments have already been provided with shelter.
We have resettled 6 people. 12 apartments have been destroyed, so right now we are collecting documents from people in order to help them through the state recovery program. In
Hospitals, 4 people remain at the moment. One of the injured, a 30-year-old woman, is in serious condition. Anastasia Neverna, Vladislav Commission, Dnipropetrovsk region, TSN 1+1.
In Pavlohrad, Dnipropetrovsk region, Russians attacked the energy infrastructure with drones. The city and nearby villages were left without electricity. The strike cut power to 8 mines in the region. About 3,000 miners were trapped underground and have now been brought to the surface. In Kherson, Russians dropped explosives from a drone onto a minibus. It is known that 3 passengers suffered blast injuries. Among them is a 14-year-old girl. A local resident also required medical assistance after being caught outside during another attack. In Sumy region, an enemy FPV drone attacked a vehicle carrying Brett. The driver was killed and 3 wounded were hospitalized. Another drone struck a tractor that was working in the field. A 26-year-old tractor driver was taken to the hospital. Hospitalization was also required for an adult and a child who were hit by a drone while in a civilian car. In Donetsk region, there are 12 wounded, 8 of whom are residents of Kramatorsk. 3 guided aerial bombs struck the city, and later a drone hit a passenger bus. In Sloviansk, 3 people were injured as a result of drone attacks, and there are also wounded in Kostiantynivka. Drones also terrorized Kharkiv region and Bohodukiv. 6 people, including a pregnant woman, an 18-year-old young man, and a 10-year-old girl, suffered acute stress reactions. As a result of a cab explosion in Malokaterynivka, which is in Zaporizhzhia, a 37-year-old woman was hospitalized. She suffered a concussion and shrapnel wounds. In total, the enemy carried out more than 600 strikes across the region using various types of weapons. The blue and yellow flag is once again flying over the Pokrovsk City Council building. 2 groups from the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skelya entered the city center, cleared the city council of occupiers, and returned the national flag to its place. The assault team set out on their mission at night. Their vehicle was damaged, but the group still managed to enter the city. The soldiers moved quickly through Pokrovsk, choosing roads with the most trees and cover. One group of fighters fell into an ambush, and one of the assault troops was wounded, but he refused evacuation, so the guys continued moving toward the city council. The element of surprise worked in favor of our soldiers. The enemy in the city council building was eliminated, and the flag flew once again in its rightful place. This operation by the 425th Separate Assault Regiment, Skelya, disproves the occupiers' claims that the city is surrounded. At the same time, the situation in Pokrovsk is indeed difficult, and the city has essentially turned into a gray zone where the presence of both our troops and the enemy's positions has been confirmed by the General Staff.
Plus, you're the best. You're the best. Take shelter and stay in touch.
We advanced into the building, cleared it, and eliminated the enemy there.
There are some movements by the enemy in the populated area, but the enemy is being destroyed very quickly. Groups from the 425th Crimean are being brought in, assault regiment and other special units.
Well, and the most intense fighting along the entire front line is now taking place near Pokrovsk. The fields, forest belts, and railway tracks around the city are covered with fiber optic cables from FPV drones like a web. The realities of the Pokrovsk direction were shown in a video by operators from the Sila Svobody Operational Battalion. Russian troops are trying to infiltrate and concentrate in the city. Our defenders are countering the enemy infantry's attempts to gain a foothold there. Assaults and enemy blockades are ongoing, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Over the past day, the defense forces have stopped 100 attacks in this sector. Dozens of locomotives transporting Russian weapons and equipment have been destroyed by partisans inside Russia and in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense reports that the resistance movement against the Kremlin regime, Freedom of Russia, is involved, carried out a series of successful operations against the enemy's logistics infrastructure. This time, the partisans targeted locomotives as well as the control and power supply systems of dozens of machines that were transporting military cargo for the war against Ukraine. These acts of sabotage have significantly slowed the movement of enemy resources. The arson attacks took place in the Moscow, Samara, Sverdlovsk, and Kemerovo regions, as well as in the Komi Republic, all in Russia, and also in Novolexivka, in the Kherson region, and in Amvrosivka, in the Donetsk region. Powerful strikes against the aggressor. The General Staff reported the damage inflicted in the territories occupied by Russia and on the land of the aggressor country itself. And in temporarily occupied Crimea, fuel storage tanks were hit in Vardiske and Simferopol. As for the attack in Donetsk region, the Special Operations Forces have released stunning footage of the strike on a storage, assembly, and launch base for Shahed drones. It is located on the territory of Donetsk airport, and 90% of the drones targeting it hit their mark. Meanwhile, on the territory of the aggressor country, drones reached the Kostroma region, where they struck the third most powerful thermal power plant. They also made it to Volgograd, where they attacked facilities at the Lukoil oil refinery, which processes 6% of all Russian petroleum products, and also reached up to 8 other regions of the aggressor country. The consequences there are still being clarified. In total, the Russians report that they shot down 75 objects overnight, but of course they do not disclose how many they failed to neutralize. And this is what the explosions sound like now in Donetsk region, where a drone warehouse was hit. Z channels report that at the time of the strike, 1,000 Garand drones were stored there. The fire destroyed the fuel and explosives warehouse, as well as incinerated the drone launch site. More on the consequences of the Ukrainian attack on the Russian port of Tuapse. Fuel exports there have been halted after our drones paid a visit. According to Reuters, the city oil refinery controlled by Rosneft has stopped processing crude oil. The reason was damage to the port infrastructure. Drones struck Tuapse on November 2nd. Before this attack, the refinery had planned to increase exports this month, since a significant portion of its products are supplied to China, Malaysia, Singapore, and Turkey. However, now the ships that were being loaded at the time of the strike are anchored and standing by. And in satellite images, fresh oil slicks can be seen, indicating a spill after the visit by Ukrainian drones. The Naftan oil refinery in the Belarusian city of Novopolotsk was burning intensely. Diesel fuel caught fire there. 17 pieces of equipment and more than 70 firefighters were involved in extinguishing the blaze. The cause of the fire has not yet been reported. The fire has been contained. The Novopolotsk oil refinery is one of 2 oil processing enterprises in Belarus. Naftan is under international sanctions from the European Union, the United States, and other countries. Donald Trump will not attend the G20 summit, where a meeting with Putin was proposed, and possibly also with Volodymyr Zelensky. The US president stated that the reason is the location of the event. The Republic of South Africa, which is hosting the summit, has been the target of active criticism from the American leader. Trump accuses the South African authorities of discriminating against the white population, and today he even called the country a communist tyranny. Regarding the meeting with Putin, the US president stated that allegedly during their last phone conversation, the Kremlin dictator asked to resolve the war in Ukraine. According to Trump, Putin supposedly said, and I quote, "We have been trying to resolve this war for 10 years and have not been able to do it. You have to resolve it." Let me remind you, after a phone conversation in mid-October, Trump and Putin agreed to hold a face-to-face meeting within 2 weeks. Budapest was supposed to be the venue, but the summit was cancelled due to Russia's unwillingness to make peace. Recently, the president of Finland proposed to hold a meeting at the summit in pairs, but as we can see, that will not happen either. Punished for failure. The chief diplomat of the aggressor country was removed from participation in important events. Russian media are reporting this fate for Sergei Lavrov. According to their information, the official did not participate in the Security Council meeting the day before, nor will he lead the Russian delegation at the G20 summit in pairs. Instead, the role of head will be performed by the deputy head of the Russian dictator's administration. According to reports, Lavrov may have been punished for the breakdown of negotiations with the United States, since it was he who was supposed to arrange a meeting between Putin and Trump with the US Secretary of State. However, that event in Budapest never took place, in part due to Russia's position. By the way, at the end of October, Lavrov also made a public appearance. He criticized America and expressed dissatisfaction that the White House insists on a ceasefire before negotiations begin. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin's loyal incitatus has really fallen out of favor with the dictator? Who could replace Lavrov as the head of Russian diplomacy? And will this change anything for Ukraine and for peace negotiations? Share your thoughts and predictions. We look forward to reading them under this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will continue with the TSN broadcast. Russians without visas. The European Commission has confirmed that they are considering stricter visa regulations for citizens of the aggressor country. Earlier, Politico reported that Brussels plans to almost completely stop extraditing Russians. Multiple entry Schengen visas. Under the new rules, citizens of the aggressor country will be given mostly single-entry visas. An exception will be made for those who receive documents on humanitarian grounds or who have EU citizenship. By the way, the European Commission has called on Serbia to stop issuing passports to Russians, as this poses a threat to European security, since Serbian documents allow Russian citizens visa-free entry to the European Union. And Russians are actively taking advantage of this. They are carrying out a list of tasks set by the Kremlin. German officials accuse the far-right party of spying for Moscow. This refers to the political force Alternative for Germany, which has repeatedly been suspected of ties to the Kremlin. Currently, according to Spiegel, party members have sent numerous inquiries to the German government regarding details of military transports and the vulnerability of critical infrastructure. Of particular interest for Alternative for Germany, topics such as drones, cybersecurity, and the readiness of state data centers for crisis situations were of special interest. Some of this information is confidential, so German politicians and law enforcement officials fear that the data may have been collected for Russia. The Minister of the Interior of the state of Thuringia stated that he believes Alternative for Germany is abusing its parliamentary rights by submitting inquiries and maybe following instructions from the Kremlin. They snatched it right from under the Russians' noses. A unique operation to evacuate a damaged Humvee was organized by the fighters of the 65th Brigade Velykyi Lug. During a combat mission, the SUV hit an enemy mine and got stuck in the middle of a field. Despite the threat of attack drones, the servicemen managed to retrieve the vehicle. Daria Nazarova will continue this story.
Unique footage of the Humvee evacuation. In open terrain where enemy drones are hunting, the fighters of the 65th Brigade are pulling out the damaged vehicle. During a combat mission, the SUV ran over an enemy mine.
It exploded. The entire left side was completely blown out. The people are alive. They're wounded but alive, thank God.
It was very important for the unit to save the Humvee. These vehicles are called steel ones. The armor protects the soldiers from shrapnel and enemy drones. This is the condition the vehicle arrived in at the repair base. The explosion happened right under the wheels, says the mechanic.
There's damage underneath. Here's side damage. So basically it's no longer usable. There's no camera here. Well, we're driving on a spare. As you can see, it doesn't really fit properly.
The enemy is remotely mining the roads, so reaching the positions is becoming increasingly difficult. Near the front line, the enemy is constantly hunting vehicles with drones as well, so the most responsibility always falls on the drivers.
People are getting exhausted. It's very hard because they work almost every night, working at night like owls. And this can go on for a long time, a week, two, it varies.
The brigade's mechanics promise to fix the vehicle fairly quickly.
Right now, I'm installing the steering column, and next we'll be mounting the oil cooler up here on top. Now we're connecting the steering and the steering column over there. Before this, everything was here, but the bottom was missing. We cut it out here, inserted it, and welded it up.
If you take mobility and responsiveness into account, then probably the Humvee is the best. If you need to get in quickly, get out quickly, and stay as inconspicuous as possible, then as of today, this is probably the best and most reliable option.
Soon the Humvee rescued from right under the Russians' noses will be heading out on its next combat mission. And now the fighters of the 65th are raising money for a cockroach drone. It will help deliver ammunition and supplies to the front line. You can support the fundraiser using the details you see on the screen. Daria Nazarova, Andriy Kupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+1.
It will take years for the French Louvre Museum to fix its security issues. This became known from reports by the state auditor. One of the world's most famous museums began its security inspection 10 years ago. But it will only be able to complete the recommended modernization in 2032. The issue of security at the Louvre became acute at the end of October, when 4 robbers stole jewels worth 88 million euros from the museum in broad daylight. The robbery lasted only 7 minutes, but it took weeks to apprehend the 5 suspects. In the end, only 2 of those detained were charged, while the rest were released. Currently, the museum's security problems that allowed such a robbery to happen are being analyzed. In particular, the media reported that the password for the Louvre's video surveillance system was carelessly simple. In short, the word that was supposed to protect the entire system was simply the name of the museum itself.